There we go.
Just in time for the dog.
2 seconds. We talked for 30 minutes before the show started, and there's not a sound in the whole thing. All of a sudden, love it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to UGASports Live. My name is Rodney DeBulce. I am joined by Jim Dunn, the Hall of Fame Georgia former head coach. We're joined by Jake Roos, the proud owner of Some Crazy Dog, and, of course, Dane Young, father of two. That's his best title that we can give him. And as we tell him each and every week, sometimes on the air, sometimes not, congratulations to Dane Young for marrying a woman who would bear him 2 children. That's
the best way to say it.
Greatest compliment we can give Dane Young. So a lot of breaking news this Tuesday morning. Georgia picks up a commit out of Alabama. Jackson Meeks from a school that is well known for putting out wide receivers at Phoenix City High School. I'll let our man Jake Roos talk about that, get Coach Donna's take, and also mentioned we'll get Dane, who's very familiar with that area. We've had I remember last week's show we didn't have Coach Donna on, and Coach, you'll appreciate this. Someone sent in a question, hey, do you see any opt-outs to UGA? We're like, no, not really. Yeah, 24 hours later, we're breaking the news that there's no Jamie Newman is opting out. So c'est la vie there. Shows what happens when Coach Donnan is not on the show. So he kind of throws us for a loop. Had another scrimmage this past weekend, so we'll get into some of that. But before we get into any of that, I want to give a shout out to our friends at Masada Leather, new sponsor for us. Not new to Athens, been around since I think 1975. Irvin, the folks over at Masada Leather, they're in a new location. Okay, now if you're like me, you always went downtown to Masada Leather, right across the street from the bank, across from the Fred Building, right on the corner there. Now, if you go to 5 Points in Athens, there's a new store there right between the Royal Peasant and Earth Fair. Easy to walk to, easy to park at. Go in, get your Birkenstocks, get your belts, get your handmade leather goods. And the cool thing about all their leather stuff that they make, because he makes it there, they also do leather repairs, they want it to be used. So if you get a belt, you get a bag, you get shoes, you get whatever, wear the heck out of it. Wear it out. If for any reason, 5-10 years down the line, it breaks or wears out or something, they'll fix it for free. Lifetime warranty on all their handmade stuff. So big shout out to Masada Leather. I'm thrilled that they're a sponsor of our show because I've been a shopper there since I came to school in 1990, and everybody I know gets their stuff there. So thanks to them for being sponsors of our show. I think we need to jump right into the commit that broke this morning. Jackson Meeks, wide receiver. If you would, Jake, tell us what Georgia's getting in Jackson Meeks.
Yeah, one that we've been watching for some time, just over 2 weeks since he picked up the offer. And, that came on the heels of a great performance against national powerhouse Hoover. I know everybody knows those guys over just outside of Birmingham. Put up like 13 catches, 230 plus yards. Actually had a little bit more than that, but that last touchdown got called back on him. So I think he went for like 4 and like almost 300. But, this is a kid that I think is a very interesting prospect for Georgia. It's a situation I think where they were going to have not trouble necessarily, but it was going to be interesting to see how they convince guys to come into this class, given how many receivers they took last year. There's plenty of depth ahead of him. So I think that it makes a lot of sense to take a kid like this who looks like he's really emerging onto the scene. This is a guy who I wrote, in the What It Means, What's Next. This looks like a kid to me who could really have benefited from the spring and summer camp circuit. I think that it would have really helped Jackson Meeks out a lot, because his season last year got cut short with an ACL injury. So not a lot of film on him, despite having played next to a tremendous receiver in EJ Williams last year, who ended up at Clemson. But you're talking about 6'2", 205 pounds, looks to have really solid hands, a kid who can get out there and power for position. And, I think I saw through 3 games, he's almost at 500 yards on the season. He's really tearing it up. And as I mentioned also in that What It Means, What's Next, this is a kid who comes from a program that has the pedigree. Justin Ross, who was at Clemson and is at Clemson, when he was healthy, when he was healthy, he was slated for an early round pick for sure. I mean, he was probably looking like a first receiver kind of guy off the board. Obviously he's dealing with a tough injury, but then you send EJ Williams, like I said, number 50 player in the nation last year, had a chance to watch him play a couple times. Exceptional player also. I think that the kid's getting great coaching. He's playing around great players, and he understands what it takes to be successful. So kudos to Georgia for going out on a limb, taking a risk on a kid. In my opinion, it's a low risk, high reward situation for them, and really looks like it could pay dividends down the road. I think it could make Cortez Hankton look very smart.
Coach Jonan, give me your take on this kid. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to look at, and again, I don't want to run down the rankings at UGASports or Rivals.com. To me, I always get livid when people say, well, he's only a 3-star, and they don't understand that in our system, a 3-star is a guy we expect to make significant contributions at the collegiate level, with the possibility of going on to the NFL. This year, I mean, this kid missed some time. Kirby's won 3 back-to-back recruiting titles. It drives me crazy. He's only a 3-star, but let's throw out his rankings and kind of give me what you think about this pickup.
As long as our guys feel good about it, that's good enough for me. Usually when you have the benefit of camp, I get to watch those kids over there in the summer, and I could give you a more definitive answer, but just like everybody else, you don't have them in there. And I think it's hurt a lot of guys, particularly him coming off an injury like he had, an ACL. But I was going to ask Dane, and because he knows a lot about that area. Do you know who the best all-time receiver to ever come out of Phoenix City, Alabama?
Not off the top of my head, no. Maybe I'm too young for that question. We'll see.
Named Jimmy Red Phillips, played at Auburn, 1957 national championship team.
How did you not know that?
I actually worked on the staff with them at Florida State. He played pro ball. Played out in the, played for the Chargers, played for several teams, but ended up having a very successful insurance company over there in Phoenix City. So I just had to throw that one out. But Jimmy Red was a good coach, and he played for Shug Jordan there and had a great team. But I think recruiting is so up in the air now as far as all the pundits, so to speak, rating everybody because, we are spoiled with the guys that we've got and the ones that, that are on our present roster. I think we'll just have to see. But knowing he only had one receiver left that you could take, and the fact that we took this guy, I got to believe that there's got to be a real good reason for that. So, if we had,
people in that area, you actually came up with some fantastic video for us, reaching out to some of your contacts in the area. Give us your take on this, because I know that you and Trent Smallwood, you guys are big on breaking down film. Throw in Brent Rollins in there. You guys are the film guys, your analyst team, if you will. Give us your take.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, I was the sports director at WRBL in Columbus, Georgia in 2015-ish, and then I worked there before that as well. So I got to know that area really well. In fact, when Dell McGee left Carver High School to go to Auburn as an off-field analyst, I interviewed him at a basketball game that night because, he was on the way out and we needed to talk to Dell. And what I can tell you is that Dell McGee's name in Columbus, Phoenix City, that area, holds so much weight. And I know Cortez Hankton is involved in this recruiting. I've seen Trey Scott maybe in it as well. When you say Coach McGee in Columbus, it's over with. I mean, that guy there is just such a big deal. I'll tell you that Central, when I first started covering them, was a very average team. Jamie Dubose came in when he was the head coach and really got people excited about football in that area. I'm talking like 120 kids showing out for spring practice just because they wanted to get involved in it. It was quite a movement that he had there. Now, Jamie left to go be the head coach at, is it Lowndes? Yeah, Lowndes and down in Valdosta. A tremendous coach. He used to coach at Prattville High School and winning state championships there in Alabama. What I'll tell you is that the new head coach is Patrick Nix. His son is Bo Nix. both Auburn quarterbacks. So for Georgia to go into that area and snag a wide receiver who's a bit of a late bloomer compared to what Justin Ross or even EJ Williams was, I think it's massive. And look, if you can put up those stats against the competition that he's getting in practice at Central and in 7A football in Alabama, I mean, Jake's right on. This is a low risk proposition because at minimum, he'll be a nice, productive wide receiver. At maximum, he'll be a superstar. We'll see.
Well, you mentioned Bo Nix, and that takes us into quarterbacks. And we think about we know who the quarterback will be at Auburn. We do not know who the quarterback will be at Georgia. We were thinking it was going to be Jamie Newman. Jamie Newman decided to opt out last week, and apparently decided on Tuesday, told the coaches, announced it on Wednesday. So we've got a lot to talk about there. Before I get into everyone's opinions and takes on the quarterback situation, I do want to mention our friends over at Athens Ford, huge sponsors of our show. If you go to their website, you're going to get $250 off any vehicle. If you're a student, you can get $500 off a vehicle. If you're in the military or first responder, they also have huge discounts for you as well. I can tell you about their monthly specials, but it's just easier to go to their site, click on Athens Ford, click on new specials, view specials. I mean, last month they were doing the 3-month 0% financing for any of their certified pre-owned vehicles, which is just a fantastic deal. I can tell you about the fact that they have they'll bring a car out to your house, let you test drive it, and pick it up, so you don't actually have to go into the showroom. Although the showroom is immaculate, it is you could probably operate in there. It is as clean and sanitary as any place I've ever seen. The service area is immaculate. But I think the best thing I need to tell folks about is if you go to the website, right up front is a big box that says reserve your Bronco. I know everybody wants that Ford Bronco. Go get on the list to reserve your Bronco because it's an amazing vehicle. I can't wait to see it. So it's up now. Go reserve yours. Coach, I want to jump straight to you. What is the impact of Jamie Newman opting out of the University of Georgia?
Well, it's significant impact, no question about it, because of what he brings to the table, experience-wise, talent-wise, and the time that the program spent working with him, throughout the winter, summer, and now the fall. So every rep that he took is out the door. But at the same time, you got to respect the fact that he has some family issues involved with COVID. I'm not sure everything involved, but for this guy to be running first team at Georgia, when that's what he was when he left, he was taking the first team reps on the Monday that he left on Tuesday. So I know that they hadn't necessarily decided that he was a starter, but he was, after that first scrimmage, he was taking most of them. So
Really?
I will say this about Georgia's offense, which I'm going to take a little more time than normal here. I asked Dave Stats McMahon to look up how many teams have ever lost 3 starters to the NFL from one offensive line that are starting on the present team. Now, I don't think that maybe Wilson's going to start for Tennessee, but Solomon Kinley starting for the Miami Dolphins goes to show you the kind of immense talent we had in the offensive line, along with a guy taken like Andrew Thomas. So everybody's thinking we can just snap our fingers and make this a offensive line rebuild. And you add the fact that you lost Cade Mays, who would have been a starter on this line. So there's 4 guys for anybody's offensive line, plus the tight end situation, plus losing Blaylock now, who was the second leading receiver we had back. So when you look at the quarterback situation and certainly losing Swift, you've got to come back with what's going to make us a better team at quarterback. And we're going to need some mobility back there, because I guarantee you our offensive line's not going to be a finished unit regardless of who plays. We got some talent to play in there. So that's where Dwan factors into it maybe more than people think, because you got to avoid losses in the passing game. I know JT Daniels is fairly agile, and he hasn't been cleared. When I see that he's been cleared, then I will feel a lot better about what his chances are of being the starter. But I do feel like it was a big deal for us to lose Jamie. I feel good about the ones we have, but we've got a big rebuild on our offense. There's no question about a new coordinator, a new O-line coach, a lot of new players. So we've been spoiled around here with the efficiency we've operated with on offense, even though we didn't score a lot of points last year, we didn't make very many mistakes and didn't beat ourselves. And we won 11 games. So I like the quarterback battle. JT's got some experience. And the last thing I'd say about Dwan, I got tremendous respect for Urban Meyer. I recruited against him when he was at Notre Dame. I watched him build a program at Utah. I watched him build a program at Bowling Green, at Florida, and at Ohio State. And if he offered Dwan Mathis and took him as a quarterback, I guarantee you he wasn't bringing him in there to ride the pine. So Dwan Mathis, to me, people don't know what kind of talent. He's the fastest quarterback we've had here since I can remember, and has a big arm, very similar to Stafford Fields as far as a big arm. His accuracy's got to work on it, but he's a guy we got to watch out for. And I like Daniels too, but it's a 2-horse race there, and they got plenty of time to decide on it. We got a tough opener on the road, but it's not like we're going to start on the road against Alabama either. So everybody's got to be patient, but they also got to understand that this is not going to be a finished product early in the year. We got to develop.
I think it's very interesting to me, the narrative that I've seen put out by insiders on Twitter and some of the people who bill themselves more as analysts than they do straight up reporters, were telling us that the reason Jamie Newman decided to opt out was that he was losing the quarterback race, or he was not guaranteed to win the quarterback race. I think that the coach pointing out that, following that scrimmage, the first scrimmage last Saturday, come Monday, Jamie Newman taking the majority of the first team snaps is quite telling. So a lot of people, I think that clearly blows that narrative all to hell and back. I want to go to Jake. Jake, you, from a recruiting standpoint, you know JT Daniels' story. You're the one that broke that he was coming to Georgia. You were right there on the Dwan Mathis thing when he flipped from Ohio State. Both are coming off injuries. One has an ACL, one had a brain surgery. What's your take on how this thing plays out?
I took to Twitter as soon as it went down, and I said, I told you where my money was. I'm betting on Dwan. I think that,
Ballsy.
I know, but listen, I just feel good about that pick. He's 6 foot. He's 6'6". He's got a rocket arm. Like Coach said, I think that the accuracy.
6'6".
He's 6'6". Yeah, that's what he's listed as.
Man, oh man.
Is that in the UGA?
That is UGA. Guide? That is UGA's guide. So
okay.
We'll take it with a grain of salt, of course, but
he's a program guide, 6'6". Okay.
No, I'll tell you this. I think Dwan is a guy who just adds another level to your offense. I think that he's a guy that makes this transition a little easier. In my mind, he's probably a better replication of what you had in Jamie Newman. I think that, you're talking about a bigger, more mobile quarterback than you were with JT. So I think that you can plug him in. Obviously, doesn't have the experience that a guy like Jamie Newman had, but I think that he has some of the similar attributes to his game that can allow him to do some of the similar things that Georgia planned to do with Jamie Newman. I think that makes the transition a little bit easier for them. And I think that this is a kid that has been written off so many times. You've got to think that the hunger is there. JT Daniels came out as a 5-star, was a heralded recruit. A guy who has, just kind of been the man forever. And not to say Dwan wasn't in high school. I mean, he was a top 100 player, but he's a kid who has dealt with Justin Fields transferring to Ohio State. Didn't see that coming. So he flips to Georgia. Then he gets to Georgia, brain cyst. Okay, well, now I've got to come back from that. I'm healthy enough to come back from that. And what do? Bring in a grad transfer and a former 5-star transfer from USC. So the guy has not had an easy road when it comes to his collegiate career. I think that just makes him all the hungrier. I think that makes him ready for this opportunity. And, the people I've spoken to around him seem to think that he's ready to seize it. I encourage people to go read the article that I put out today about some insights on him from his trainer, Donovan Dooley, who he worked with in the spring, and he said, this kid has come a long way. He's been working on getting his mental game right and getting his confidence where it needs to be. But he said, I feel good about where this kid stands.
I know, Dane, you're our film guy. You broke down all that film of Jamie Newman, and now it was great at the time, but now I guess we need to spend a little more time breaking down the film of Dwan Mathis and JT Daniels. I know UGA has not put out a lot of video of them throwing. I loved your Jamie Newman highlights. How long was that? His highlights at UGA. How long was that video?
It was a big compilation of 2 seconds.
Big compilation, so 2 second vid. I know we haven't seen a whole lot of video put out by UGA, and I think that's on purpose of the passing efficacy of Dwan Mathis and JT Daniels. But kind of give us your take on where you see this quarterback race kind of as it stands now. When
the Newman announcement came out, I thought it was devastating for Georgia. I think he was that kind of talent. I think that he's going to be an NFL quarterback. I thought the world of the film that I saw from him. He was one of the best quarterbacks in college football last year with a supporting cast that was not one of the best supporting casts in college football. That said, the reason it might not be devastating for Georgia is that Kirby Smart has really put Georgia in a position that if one player leaves, it doesn't completely cave in the roster. The fact that you have a JT Daniels and a Dwan Mathis ready to compete for that spot, it makes a devastating position more palatable. Now, that said, I went back and watched some more JT Daniels this morning. I watched the first half of the game he had against Fresno last season before he tore his ACL. And I didn't see anything that was special there. That's not to say that he hasn't improved a lot. That's not to say that, he can't have that kind of, advancement in his game. But so many, I'd say 70, 80% of the passes that he threw in that first half were within 5 or 6 yards of the line of scrimmage. USC was clearly trying to get the ball out of his hands quickly and into the hands of playmakers, which is a good strategy and one that Georgia should also use. But like Coach said, if Georgia uses that kind of strategy to get the ball into playmakers' hands fast, you probably want the quarterback to be as quick and as much of a playmaker in his own right as he can be. So I don't see JT Daniels as being a savior for Georgia in this sense. Based on the film that he has now, he would have had to make so many strides from the last time he played organized football to where he is now. And maybe he has. And if he has, wonderful, and Georgia will benefit from it. But otherwise, this is going to be an offense that has a ton to prove. Coach said it. Offensive line, you're replacing 3 stars. And you got good guys behind them. I get that. Tight end, that's as probably as big of a question mark on the team as there's been in Kirby Smart's era so far. There's a lot of concerns, and I think the more that ball goes to James Cook and that ball goes to Zamir White and that ball goes to George Pickens, the better Georgia's offense will be.
Yeah, that's very fair. I can give you my take on it, but I think you guys nailed it pretty well. I wouldn't add anything other than just to kind of bump my gums here a bit. I do want to mention that we have another new sponsor for the podcast, and this is a friend of ours by the name of Ronnie Brown. He's thrown in questions. He's a big watcher of the show. We take his questions all the time just because he asks good questions. We didn't really realize that he owned a business. Now we feel kind of like idiots. But he actually owns DR Construction and Remodeling. He's got he already has a ton of work. I don't know that you can reach out to DR Construction and Remodeling and hit him up. The guy's always busy. He does great work. So it's he doesn't have to do a lot of advertising. It's all word of mouth. People just, you have him come out to your house, you have him build a house, you have him remodel a house, you have him build a deck, you have finish your basement, replace windows, put up seamless gutters, complete remodeling and renovation. And you rave about him and you share DR Construction Remodeling with everyone else. So I don't know why he's advertising on us other than he's just a damn good dog and we appreciate it. Now, one person who does advertise with us and needs to get the word out that they have a much bigger service area is Aaron Overhead Doors, AARON, Aaron Overhead Doors. They have seriously expanded their service area. Now they're in Gwinnett, Stevens, Jackson, Habersham, Barrow, Cobb, DeKalb, Hall, North Fulton, Forsyth, White County, Oconee County, Clark County, Hall County, Walton, Cherokee, North Fulton, Dawson. Just ridiculously expanded service area. That's what advertising with UGASports.com gets you. All of his employees, one of the biggest things they do is service. They fix these garage doors. All of the people that he sends out on these repair jobs are employees. They're not contractors. They're all using genuine parts, not knockoff parts. And that's a big deal when it comes to fixing your doors. They're all drug tested. They're all trained. There's constant training that goes around with this stuff. They can install anything. They can fix anything. So if you have any problems with your air and overhead door, any of your issues with your garage doors, reach out to our friends at Air and Overhead Doors. And if you were looking for a big remodeling job, call our friends DR Construction and Renovations and Remodeling, our friend Ronnie Brown. So shout out to both of them. Dane, you were talking about.
Hold on. Roddy, I'm not going to let you off the hook like that, man. You didn't give us any kind of prediction or anything, man. You just, I'll let you guys talk it out.
I'm not done. I'm just saying that Dane was saying that and Coach John mentioned having to replace 3 starters on the line. I think if you're having to replace Isaiah Wilson, Andrew Thomas, Solomon Kinley, don't forget that Cade Mays played a lot for you. And Cade's actually up at Tennessee. So you got to replace him as well. Tight ends in the scrimmage that was this past Saturday, Coach Smart mentioned that Trey McKitty got dinged up. So who knows how long he's out for or how bad it was. Maybe he's back, maybe he's not. We'll find out. But after him, I put this into my notes at UGASports.com. I put up some notes last night, insider notes, stuff you won't find anywhere else. Some stuff about the secondary, a lot of stuff about the offense. When it comes to tight end, with Trey McKitty out for a day, a week, a month, we don't know. You've turned to John Fitzpatrick, had 1 catch last year, played in 11 games. Then you have Darnell Washington, a true freshman, Rylan Goad coming off an injury, redshirt freshman, Brett Seether, redshirt freshman. To Dane's point, not a lot of question marks at tight end. No question marks really at running back. You got some very talented guys there. Good wide receiver core, George Pickens and the rest. But who is going to be distributing the ball? I put this on the message board. This is why you go to thedogvent.com. I told folks, do not be surprised if Dwan Mathis wins this job. I know why a lot of people are very high on JT Daniels. He does have that experience. You've seen him in games. You've seen him playing for USC. What we heard out of the scrimmage was that maybe JT Daniels had a better scrimmage than did Dwan Mathis. So I think a lot of people last Wednesday, Jamie Newman's out. What happened Saturday? Oh, in the scrimmage, maybe this guy had a better scrimmage than the other. I still think that you cannot coach that speed. And if anybody, I go through the litany that Jake just mentioned of Dwan Mathis, the transfer to Georgia, and all the blowback he got from that, or not say transfer, the flip from Ohio State to Georgia, the hell amount of blowback he got from that, the surgery, thinking he was going to be the guy. They bring in 2 other quarterbacks, but didn't transfer, didn't put his name in the portal, stuck it out, rehabbing, fighting, coming for the job. I like the moxie Dwan Mathis has to come and fight for the job. I think that you can't coach speed and you can't coach that desire. That, to me, puts him in the race. But I want to go back to Coach Dunn. And, Coach, if you watched that press conference with Kirby Smart, that did not sound like a man who was excited about his offense. It sounded like a man who was very disappointed in scrimmage number 2. Maybe scrimmage number 1 was sloppy. You hope that by scrimmage number 2, things are less sloppy. He had a lot of offsides, had a lot of false starts, interceptions. I don't think he was quite happy with his offense. Are we making too much out of that? And are we making too much out of the JT Daniels had a better scrimmage than Dwan Mathis did?
I base everything on facts, and I don't have a lot of facts to go by right now. It's just conjecture, but I listened to
We'll take conjecture.
I listened to Kirby after the first scrimmage, and he was talking about, sloppy. But, you got to realize the first time he'd done anything in 8 months, and they had a lot of stuff in from offense and defense from Zoom situation. And he was talking about the offense moved the ball pretty well, but he said the defense missed a lot of tackles. Then the second scrimmage, he said, hey, the offense had their problems. And a lot of that was because some of those defensive players that didn't practice the first time were probably in there in the secondary and made the tackles that they missed. So, the biggest thing for me, again, is not so much what's happened last year and in spring and what we had. And what we've got to do is factual. You're not going to have an asterisk beside, hey, we didn't practice in the spring. We started late because of COVID and all that. We're going to play games. It looks like we're going to play games, and that's the way it is. So everybody's got the same problems, as far as practices. Tennessee had 44 guys miss the other day. We hadn't had that happen at this point as far as big numbers. But the realism for me is our defense is going to be the kind that's going to put a lot of problems and stress on anybody's offense. So everybody's hoping we're going to have these lights out offensive stats. Hopefully we can, but we also got to win the games too. So we should have a tremendous kicking game. We got great cover guys. We got good return guys. And we got, looks like Zirkle and Camarda are both competing for the job. We lost a guy that made about every kick he had to make while he was here. And now he's going to be kicking for the Colts. And he beat a guy out for that. So that's another area that's up in the air. We don't have anybody's ever kicked an extra point or a field goal. So let's just look at it like this. The best thing we got is we got 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks before first game. Got a lot of practices. I look for our team to get a lot better going against the scout team. Everybody's going to say, hey, well, you should. But it's hard to go out there against Cook and those guys with our offensive line to go against LeCount and Daniels and Campbell and all those guys and Trayvon Walker rushing the passer and all that. It's hard to build a little cohesive. I've coached offense for over 50 years. And the first week we used to go out there and just have people hold shields just to create our timing. These guys are going against live bullets out there. So our offense is going to be a lot better because of who they've gone against. But there's got to be a time where, and I heard where Coach Munkin said that there's a two-way street there. You got to build confidence, but also it helps you to go against really good personnel there. So we see in practice every day as good as we're going to see all year. And that's going to help us. But we got a long way to go to build an offense that's even remotely like we had last year. And anybody that thinks that we don't, I would have to argue with them because, look, we were pretty efficient on offense last year as far as taking care of the ball and not beating ourselves and putting the defense in harm's way with turnovers and things like that. So that's the first thing we got to do. And then we got to develop some explosiveness. And I think we can do that with the people we have.
Jake, it feels like a lot of people just assumed that Georgia offensively would be where they were last year and then go forward from that. It's like, oh, well, yeah, you got all those other 5 stars. You just plug in on the offensive line. You got other tight ends. And it doesn't matter that you lost DeAndre Swift. Doesn't matter that you lost Jake Fromm because, Jake Fromm's a terrible quarterback, in the revisionist history, that's you'll just plug and play Jamie Newman or, JT Daniels. And, it doesn't matter that you lost, Charlie Warner to the, you bring in another tight end. It's no big deal. I think Coach makes a good point that maybe going from that baseline, a new offensive coordinator and a new offensive line coach, maybe that baseline of last year right now is a goal that you're trying to get to and not the starting point this year. Is that a fair assessment?
Question about it. I think that you've got to use that as your starting mark. I mean, you can't come out the gate and think that you're going to do better than that when you haven't proven anything yet with this group of guys. I mean, you mentioned, I think people forget to, just how integral Andrew Thomas and Isaiah Wilson were. I mean, you're talking about a 3-year and a 2-year starter at those positions, at 2 of the most important positions on the field. It's tough to bring that kind of experience back in, even though you've got talented guys. Jamari Sawyer, a 5-star guy in his own right, one of the best offensive linemen I've covered regardless of position during his high school career. Just a tremendous kid, have all the faith in the world in him. But there's a big difference between starting 3 years in the SEC and, having a few snaps under your belt. I think that that's the case here for Georgia. You've got to set that, I think, as your baseline. As Coach said, that efficiency is something you got to shoot for. You got to be able to protect the ball. You've got to get some cohesion in here. You got to make sure that you can keep these quarterbacks upright first and foremost. And I think that Georgia's done a good job of that in the past years, but you've got to set that as the gate or the standard out of the gate, I think, and then build from there, because anything else seems a bit unreasonable at this point. I know that the talent is there. I think the talent is there to be better than they have been. I think that they've got some guys who can be as, if not more, dynamic, but it's not fair to put those expectations on them just yet. I think that they've got a lot to prove.
Hey, Roddy, you had a note about the offensive linemen and what Matt Luke is doing with them on UGAsports.com about the cross training that they're doing. I don't know if you want to mention that, but I want Coach's opinion on how that cross training helps build that cohesion. So do you want to give the note and then maybe toss it to Coach?
Let's see. We also had the question that popped up. What am I eating? I'm at Classic City Eats, and under all this grilled chicken and cheese and sweet heat sauce and tomatoes, there's a salad under there somewhere. That's just, so when you're looking at eventually when you get through all the chicken, you'll find a lone piece of lettuce trying to represent for the entire plate there, saying that he is a salad. So yes, I'm having a salad. Yes, here's the thing about UGAsports.com. We have the best message board in the known universe. It's a fantastic community there. You just spend your day talking with other Georgia fans. But every once in a while, Dane comes on there and puts up a great video, or Dave puts up a stat that you've never seen before, or Patrick puts up a video clip that you've never seen or don't remember, from the glory days of UGA and or recent stuff. And then, all of a sudden Trent and Chad Simmons and Jake Roos put up a new prediction or a new crazy story or break. They put out a story this morning. Hey, Georgia just picked up a commit you didn't see coming. So a lot of stuff going on over there. And even I get in on the fun sometimes because, every day we have stories from Anthony Dasher, but I put up some notes from this past scrimmage and past few weeks. And we noted that at one point, Warren Erickson, who actually started the game against Baylor, was working at center, and Trey Hill, Georgia's very talented center, was working at guard. And then we heard that Clay Webb was working in there, and Cedric Van Pran's getting some work at center as well. So that interior of the offensive line, I think that Jake just brought a great point. Trying to replace bookend first-round tackles is a huge issue, and I think a lot of people are just kind of brushing it off as it won't be a big deal. Jamari Sawyer will take over and they'll be fine. It won't be fine. You're going to have some work that you have to do there. And Coach, as he points out, well, you have 3 weeks to make that to get there, and then you'll have to improve throughout the season. But we're seeing a lot of cross training happening in that interior line. A lot of great depth that interior. But Coach, why would you? I don't want to say why would you cross train, but what is your take on why they're doing all that? Because it seems like Trey Hill has pretty much got that thing on lock. Does he not?
Yeah, he does, but you also got to realize that you usually don't have out of 10 linemen. You usually don't have the next 5 that the 6 guys might be the left tackle, but he might not be. The way I will explain here is you got 5 starters. Right. Now, who's the 6th guy? Who's the next best lineman? Is he a left tackle? But can he play guard? Can he play center? Is he a center? Can he play guard? Can he play tackle? So you'll try to get the 6th and 7th guys that can maybe play multiple positions. So if somebody goes down, they can jump in there. I.e., Andrew Thomas went down against South Carolina in the game down there 2 years ago, and right away we put Cade Mays in there at tackle, who'd been playing guard in the camp, and they put him in there at left tackle because he was the next best guy. And that's the way most O-line guys I've ever dealt with. You don't want a guy sitting on the bench that might be better than a guy that's going in the game just because he's the second team guy there. And if you have the luxury of having those next 5 be the best player at that position and the next best player all the way down, it's okay. But everybody knows what Erickson's put in here. I like him. He plays hard. He wants to be a Georgia dog. He plays every down very aggressively. Clay Webbs was a highly recruited guy, and he's behind a center who's probably the second or maybe first best center in the country. So where can we get Clay in the game? Is it a guard? Is it a center? and moving Hill some to guard if some would happen to Ben Cleveland. So who knows? You got to look at all those things. And Matt Luke is a veteran offensive line coach, a head coach, and he's building that depth. Doesn't have the luxury of Broderick Jones being 100% like Andrew Thomas was when he came in here. Broderick Jones had an injury this summer, and he's trying to develop. I feel good about Truss and McClendon and Condon, but none of them have played. So a lot of things up in the air from that standpoint. But that's why we got this show to talk about it. We got some really good talent on the offensive line, but I don't know that we're as talented as we've been the last 3 years from 1 through 10. You can't take 2 first-round draft choices out of anybody's O-line and say that. And like I said, I don't know if any offensive line has ever lost 3 guys to the NFL draft like we did that are going to be starting. Now, maybe Wilson's not starting, but I know Thomas and Solomon Kinley are. So if you want to know how much Solomon Kinley meant to our team, he's starting for the Miami Dolphins right now. I mean, he's going to be on television Sunday playing against the New England Patriots, trying to block Bill Belichick's defense. So
left early too.
It's pretty impressive.
I'm going to come out here with a bold prediction too. I think that we talk a lot about Cade Mays, and rightfully so. That guy was a mauler, and a guy who could play anywhere across the line, and did. I mean, you plug and play wherever you needed him to. I think that if Warren McClendon doesn't end up being the right tackle and Owen Condon holds on to it as most people expect, I think McClendon's that guy for this offensive line this year. And that goes back to what I saw from him in high school. This is a guy who I feel comfortable slotting in at any of the 5 positions. So is he quite the level of Cade Mays? That's to be determined. Can he do it when the band's playing? Obviously that's still to be determined, but I think he's got that positional flexibility and the kind of skill in order to fill a lot of those roles.
Here's one other thing about Jamari Salyer too. Every day he's going against Nolan Smith. He's going against Jermaine Johnson. Is that his first name, Johnson? I don't.
Jermaine Johnson, Azeez Ojulari.
He's going against Alargy. He's going against Adam Anderson. I mean, he's got to make tremendous strides just by. Even if he's batting 75% blocking them, that's pretty good against those guys. I mean, and I know watching practice over the years, which I haven't had the benefit this year, but they do that team pass out there, which is pretty much as hard a thing as an offense has to do. Everybody in the building, including the janitors, the people that clean up the place, know that it's going to be a pass. And the defensive line knows the snap count. And they're working and they're lining up like people getting ready to eat that salad there with that stuff on it to eat the lunch of the quarterback, rushing in there for about 10 minutes there. It's a heck of a drill for 10 minutes. All passes. Maybe they'll run a screen once in a while just to throw a crumb out there to the lineman, but they make it hard as they can. And it really helps them. It really does, because usually in a game, you don't have 5 or 6 third and long situations, but in the case of that situation, they'll have 10 or 12 apiece right there. Then after they finish that, they'll go to pass skeleton, and the lineman will go down there, and then they'll do pass rush against the D line. And they'll have 15 reps where it's just one-on-one. You got to block Azeez Ojulari 15 times rushing a passer. So they're going to get better, that's for sure. But right now, regardless of why Jamari has played or hadn't played, he's been here starting his 3rd year, and he hasn't played a lot. He's had good competition, but he got hurt the first year. He didn't get to come in till June the first year, whereas Cade Mays and those guys came in January. And this is his time. He's got to step it up, but he's got a lot more experience than we do at right tackle, though. That's for sure.
Something to remember with offensive line too is that it's probably the most difficult position to transition from high school to college. It takes more time to get that technique down. It takes more time to get your body ready for what you're going to be going through. So it may not be that freshmen can help right away in some of those spots. Where you're going to see some of that depth that's come from the last couple of recruiting classes really come into play. The stories like Andrew Thomas starting as a freshman at right tackle, that's rare, and especially at the way that he did it and the caliber that he was.
Hey, something positive from Dane after he's been Johnny depression all day. We tease Dane, but he's never here to blow smoke up our skirts. He's always going to keep it honest, and I think that's commendable, even if he does bring us all very, very down. Jake, before you hit any of the questions that come in, I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Academia Brewing Company. They have a fantastic beer out there that I'm probably, after I leave the show, I'm probably going to swing out and pick up some of their claustrophobia. Now, I love their phobia beer. It's one of my favorites. But they've taken their phobia and they've put it in whiskey barrels and aged it. It's a delicious imperial stout. Even as the bottles are fantastic. They have these crazy graphics on them. But this claustrophobia is 13% alcohol by volume. It is not it's nothing to play with. It's been 6 months. 9 months in the whiskey barrels. So if you get a chance, swing by Academia Brewing Company and pick up claustrophobia. If you like some of the darker beers, imperial stouts, it's fantastic. There is a limit to 6 bottles per person. They didn't make this in a huge batch, so I need to go get my bottles now. Of course, if you're in town, we've had some folks come in for the scrimmage last week. They told me they stopped by and checked out the Academia and had a great time. So some of the former lettermen who were actually able to check out the scrimmage, they stopped by there and they said they loved it. Just saying, when you get a chance, our friend Matt Casey at Academia has really going on out there. Jake, do we have any questions that come in that we want to get to, or do you have anything you want to add?
Well, we had a couple last week, and one in particular that I wanted to bring.
Coach Don that we never got to.
Yeah. Well, mostly, no one really wanted to talk to us last week, Coach. They just had questions for you. But the questions we got last week, and I thought one of the most compelling was, how much as a coach, how much, I guess, do you factor in the scrimmages versus what happens in practice? How important is that? How do you balance those two things out? How does that factor into how you ultimately end up making decisions about personnel?
I would say 11 on 11 is the biggest factor because that's the way you play the game. Certainly the way you do drills, the way you handle your assignments in the practice areas, but the scrimmages play a lot in making that decision. And also just looking at your overall team and how you can win the game and avoid losing as much as you can, as far as making mistakes, how the guy blends with the rest of the players. Some guys aren't near as good one-on-one as they are when there's 11 guys out there, because they can count on people to help them make up for some of their deficiencies. By that, I mean you can call a coverage to help a safety that isn't a very good one-on-one cover guy, but now in the grand scheme of things, he's a good zone player. He can tackle. He's good at recognizing routes and things like that. That's why some guys have a hard time transitioning to the NFL, because they play so much man coverage. They're great college safeties, but they have a hard time in the pros. But I would say the scrimmages are certainly going to factor into it. Plus, the defense that we have is going to factor into it too. Kirby made a change on offense, looking for more explosiveness, looking for more points because we didn't score enough last year. But right now, we're just going to have to see how things transpire. I mean, but the real bottom line for me is whenever you pick a quarterback, you pick him as how it's going to look for the whole season. I know we had a situation there where we had to pick a quarterback there. Where we had Mike Bobo leave, and we picked Quincy Carter. Whoever we had to play that first game against Kent State was going to look good. I mean, we're going to score a lot of points there. But we made that move based on what I thought would give us the best chance to beat LSU, beat everybody on our schedule. And it worked out okay. We didn't win enough games the next couple of years, but that's the way you got to look at it. Who can beat Florida? Who can beat Alabama? That's the way you got to look at your starters, whether it's quarterback or any other position.
We got this one as well, Coach. After the scrimmage, Coach Smart always mentions not having seen the tape and wanting to reserve judgment. As a coach, does reviewing the tape after a scrimmage lead you to change your practices in the future? And and how does reviewing a scrimmage tape affect you as a coach moving forward?
Absolutely. When you look at the scrimmage from a head coaching standpoint, it's a lot different than a guy that's maybe just coaching 3 receivers or coaching the kicker, or, you know, all he's going to do is watch one guy. They're asking you 5 minutes after the scrimmage, how did so-and-so play? You're watching 22 guys at a time, and you got they ran them like 140 plays. So that's
No
a lot
excuse.
of reps.
No excuse. You should be able to answer all our questions like that.
You can answer them, but you can BS them too. You can reserve the judgment because you want to fine tooth comb. You know, you might think a guy made a good play, and and we used to use a grading system where, you know, job accomplished is the first part. Did you get the job accomplished? But also, what was your technique? Was your knowledge of assignment right? You know, a guy can make a bad assignment mistake and luck into making a good play, but that's usually not going to happen. So by watching the tape where you run it back and forth, and everybody's got to realize that when you watch a tape at the University of Georgia or any major college, you're looking at it from 3 different levels. You're looking at it from behind, you're looking at it from a wide shot, and if depending on whether you're a lineman or a defensive back, you're looking at a tight shot too, where you're looking at it from behind tight and you're looking at it from the side tight. So you got 4 different angles you can look at a guy. Does he take the right step? Does he deliver the right blow? Does he use the right swim technique? All those things are important because that's what coaching's all about. But I will say this, 11 on 11 is what people are going to go to the games. They're going to social distance. They're going to sit there and they're going to watch it. And that's what you judge a player by. How does he play with the other guys? And how does he supplement your team? And above all, there's no greater reward than team victory. So you got to win the damn game. And how you're going to win it is put your best 22 out there. And I guarantee you, that's what Coach Smart will do. And when he says he's reserving the right to look at the tape, that's what he's got as a head coach. He's going to look at the tape.
It's fair. But there's just times that we're like, we say when we ask those questions, we're like, give us your inkling, give us your impression. And then we take that and we put it out there, and then that becomes the fact, and we don't go back the following week and say, hey, coach, it's week 4. When you went back and looked at week 3, what were your takeaways? We don't follow up on that, and that's our fault as the media. I give Kirby grief sometimes about not giving us enough access that we want, which would never be enough. But it is, you do point out something quite fair that we're expecting a snap judgment right there. And, hey, he might not have been looking at it. Let me run through some of the questions here, like Scott Harris.
Let me tell you this one thing. I think it's a lot different answering that question after a game than it is after a scrimmage, because you guys have watched the game. Yeah. And he's watched the game, and he's not looking at his team's defense when the other team, from that standpoint, he's not having to look at all 22. He's watching our team more, and he's got some pretty valued judgments, and he doesn't really say, I have to look at the tape. He usually answers those questions pretty quickly. But all you guys are trying to get, what happened at the scrimmage, Kirby? Tell us who threw the ball good, who caught it, who did all that. He ain't going to tell you that.
Why not? That's perfectly fair. That's perfectly fair. But you mentioned 22, and Scott Harris has a question about a couple guys outside the starting 22, because he wants to know, is there any word on the place kicking competition? And Kirby Smart pretty much said it's neck and neck. Our insider notes said it's the same thing. They're both kicking well. Jake Camarda, Jared Zirkle, but it is neck and neck. I did want to bring up this comment.
Let me point out one thing on the place kicking too, is you can get an inordinate amount of reps out there. They just don't wait till there's a chance to kick a field goal in a scrimmage. Let's just say you go up there and you everything's scripted. So they have so many kickoffs, so many kickoff returns in between 1 versus 2 offense and versus 2 defense and all that. So you might have 3 or 4 field goals in a row there. So Zirkle will kick 2 and Camargo will kick 2 off the left hash and then off the middle and then off the right. So from that standpoint, you're going to have an open competition there for a long time just because the guy's never kicked before here in Zirkle. You know what Camargo can do punting, but you don't know place kicking. So I think it's great that Zirkle is at least competitive with Camargo because otherwise we'd already named Camargo, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think you're right. We have an interesting question here from Cameron Martinez about the Jamie Newman situation. But before I mention that, I do want to let everybody know that today is the, technically summer's kind of over, but today is the last day to get double points on your YourPie app. YourPie, the pizza joint with tons and tons of locations, big sponsor of our show, big sponsor of our website. Today's the last day for double points. So when you order your pizza and you customize it through the app, you get points and you get free pizzas a lot of the time. For the longest time throughout the summer, they've been doing double points on everything that you order. Today's the last day, so jump on that. And while you're there, pick up what I've had, the key lime cream pie gelato. So I'm just telling you, it's fantastic. When you swing by YourPie, pick up one of those. Natalie and Drew French, huge Georgia supporters, huge Georgia fans. They have a great franchising opportunity. If some of you have had some situations with COVID and you're like, look, I don't want to work at this job anymore, or this company's downsized, reach out to Natalie and Drew French and open up a YourPie franchise. It is, I can't say it's guaranteed to succeed, but I can almost say that. So it's just a fantastic way to make a lot of money and to do something you really enjoy. And they are such a great part of the community. Big shout out to her friends at YourPie. The question I want to mention from Cameron says, if Kirby was completely sold on Jamie Newman being the man this year, he wouldn't have brought in, he would have gone out and recruited JT Daniels, period. And I think that's maybe not banging on Cameron Martinez's question here or his comment here, but I think that may be a little short-sighted. If you're completely sold on one, if you're completely sold on one player, I think they're pretty much sold on Trey Hill, but they still bring in centers. I think they're pretty sold on Darnell Washington, but they're going to, bring in other tight ends. I don't like the idea that you can gauge whether or not how much the coaches are behind a player by who else they recruit. I'll just open it up to the group. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, I think you're right for sure. And in the case of bringing in Daniels, you got to remember we're replacing the guy, the only 2 guys we have on our team that Juan Mathis coming off of cyst on his brain, and Stetson Bennett has hardly ever played much here. He played some in junior college, and Beck, the freshman, hasn't even been here but a semester, and he hadn't played in spring practice. So a lot of things up in the air there for a backup quarterback. So you got a chance to get a 5-star quarterback like that, you take him in the New York Minute because you're not just looking at your starter, you're looking at your backup. Now that Dwan has been cleared and is going good, he might not have done the same thing at that point, but I think it was a tremendous move, and for sure it looks good now with Jamie leaving.
I said at the time when they brought JT in, and I felt this, and I still kind of feel this way, that the JT Daniels pickup with Jamie Newman on the roster felt like it was as much a pickup for 2021 as it was for the 2020 season. So I don't think that it had much bearing on that at all. I think that Kirby, we've talked about this and we've harped on it. I just don't think he ever wants to find himself in a situation like he was last season, where it was Jake Fromm, Stetson Bennett, who you felt like could help you, could play, but could he be the man and win in those big games, to be determined. I think that was really the big thing for him, is making sure that he was never going to have that question mark at what is the most important position on the field again.
Roster management is all about avoiding pitfalls. So even if Newman would have stayed, he would have been an injury away from whoever's coming in next. And so you always have to be prepared for those situations. Jamie Newman was in line to be the starting quarterback at Georgia. Now, I think that's a period at the end of that sentence. Could things have changed? Sure, they could have. But at the time that all this happened, he was in line to be the starting quarterback. And I think that's where that part of the discussion stops.
That's not what my insider said.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to rip on the insiders, but people that come out and say that Jamie Newman was losing a job are doing a disservice to Jamie Newman and doing a disservice to Todd Monk, and they're doing a disservice to their credibility because you don't know that, and I guarantee you I'll put my sources up against anybody's out there, and I'll say that Coach Donnan just tells us, hey, who was taking the most snaps with the first string offense after the first scrimmage? Jamie Newman. So to me, it's out there, but I do like roster management. We saw a situation where the same head coach had 2 5-star quarterbacks, and 8 plays into his second season, he lost one of them, So I think, if anybody's trying to say, well, you wouldn't have brought in another 5-star quarterback if you're happy with the one you have. This is Kirby freaking Smart we're talking about. He brings in 5 stars to replace 5 stars. How many 5-stars tailbacks does he have right now? How many is he trying to bring in?
Yeah. I mean, he's got 2. Well, he's got 2 vying for the number 1 position. So
it's 3 total with Milton.
Yep.
Right. And is he working on a 4th? And Kenny Mack may be better than
McIntosh and Dejon Edwards, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying that it's never enough for Kirby Smart. So anyway, I think we're kind of running a little long here, but I think that hopefully we've put some of these bad narratives to rest. I think we've given a very accurate assessment of where the offense may stand right now. I don't think we've given enough credit to how good this defense is going to be. That was also in our notes, our insider notes yesterday, how strong this defense can be. And I thought that when we got to speak to Trayvon Walker the other day, he's like, the sky's the limit on this defense. And when you have guys like Tyson Campbell, we have that story coming here in a bit saying, yeah, I'm better than I was. The 5-star cornerback who thinks he's even better than he has been is Coach keeps making the point that if you're going up against this defense, iron sharpens iron, and you can only get better. You might get the
and it's not just the defense, Roddy. It's the special teams, because that depth that's on defense and then at some of the offensive positions, you're talking 4-star linebackers and 4-star receivers and 5-star guys running down the field on special teams. And you can score points that way in college football, and it happens quite often. So Georgia will have a special teams advantage over, I would say, virtually every team they play.
It's a good point. We had some insider notes on who's returning kicks back there, who's returning punts. That we're not going to put that out on the podcast. You'll have to actually go to UGASports.com for that. Also, check out all the reaction, the film analysis, the breakdowns that we've had on Jackson Meeks committing earlier today, plus all the other stories we have.
I got a little something special coming too. I think you guys know what I'm talking about, but we haven't put out. We haven't put it out. We did something under the radar that I think people are gonna dig. So.
Yeah. All right. So be sure to tune in tomorrow.
Yes, I think tomorrow seems fair.
I get to work. All right. For Coach Donnan, Dane Young, Jake Roos, I'm Roddy DeBulce. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will talk to you folks next Tuesday at noon. Take care.